Ian, when did your health problems first start, and what was the one thing that you had the most trouble with, and how did you first attempt to alleviate that?
Well, the one problem I had is I didn't know at all what was going on or how to maintain my body or how to take care of myself. I simply did what everybody else did at the time. I wasn't even into like drinking or smoking or anything. I didn't do those things. I just had the kind of a lifestyle where I did what was normal. You know, I ate lots of fast food, ate lots of restaurant food, didn't worry about my sleep. You know, I thought I was invincible. I didn't know even what was managing stress meant. I didn't know what the word detox meant. I just did what everybody else did. And I hit the wall so hard. I had three major things hit me that would have taken me out and taken me off the earth by about 49 years old. And that was just based upon all the medical diagnostics, the prognosis, the things they offered me, which I was not interested at all. I couldn't even believe the situation I was getting myself into. And it was everything from what they call heart disease, colon cancer, and what they wanted to call liver cancer. In my estimation, I never had cancer. I had what they wanted to call it. But because I would never allow a biopsy or a final diagnosis, and I knew that even if they said I had it, I was not interested in their treatments, because when I was 20 years old, both my uncles passed when they were 51 and 54 years old on my mom's side. And they did exactly everything that they were diagnosed, first of all, as cancer. They followed all the treatments right through until their funerals. And their funerals were basically on time. One took a year to pass, the other one took about 6 months. So they had terminal cancer diagnosis, and my body was blowing up. So thankfully today, all those things are long gone, and I'm like super, super healthy at 63. So I went from like being 46 with 1,000 days left to live to being 63 with, who knows, 20,000 days? We'll see. But we have a big shift happened. And that start was about the scariest thing that anybody could ever go through, because I just didn't know. And, you know, it didn't help me to know that I didn't want the doctors to give me treatments. That didn't help. It just showed me that, wow, they don't really know what they're doing in these areas. It's too risky. And I certainly don't know either. But one morning I woke up in the middle of all this, and I realized that on the earth there are people who have the top level knowledge in every single thing that is happening in our physical bodies. They also have top level knowledge for your mental health, emotional health. There's, of course, spiritual health. That's a whole different category. But when you're talking about your physical being, who you are, you know, you're talking mental, emotional, physical, domestic, environmental, and financial. There's all kinds, and then all your social relationships. All those things are heavy bearing upon whether you're going to be progressing at a very successful rate or digressing. And wow, everything just crashed. It was a remarkable situation to be in, where you have nothing left to lose, except for you got to get better. And what happens statistically, if you look at the odds, most people, when you have two or three things happening simultaneously, it's so overwhelming that you want to give up, which is what I felt like. It's like, wow, like, is this it? What's happening to me? This was not like this last year. And now I got this and this. And I had a huge fistula cyst. That was the first huge indication, growing right up in between my legs against my prostate. It eventually attached itself into my digestive system, and it was wreaking havoc on everything. And it was beating, and I was told, you have to get it cut out or it will become a tumor. And when I thought about having that part of my body worked on with a surgeon with a knife, where all the plumbing is, I was like, I'm not comfortable with this. And I looked it online and found out that if they cut it out, it likely will come back, only worse. And they do, you know, millions of these operations around the world. This is so common stuff, apparently. But I didn't care about that either. So what if it's common? If I have it, that's all that matters to me. And I don't want the treatment. So I would ask the question, very good question. Why do you think I have this problem? In your experience, you know, what would be the reasons? And the doctors, every one of them, just kept referring back to statistical data, saying, hey, this is nothing unusual. Guys in your 40s get this often. And it's like, okay, but if you can't tell me why I have what I have. How can I trust you to deal with the problem if you don't know the root cause? And people started telling me, you got to go to the root cause. Well, how are you and I going to go to root cause without any knowledge? Well, I'll fast forward it. Exactly what it was. It turns out I met all the people who did know. It took several years. Fortunately, I started learning about detox and cleaning up my diet and all those things right away. So I was able to extend 1,000 days to 5,000 days to give myself some bandwidth. But it was fungal infections. It was heavy metals, like crazy amounts of heavy metals, bacterial infections, chemical sensitivities, and just an overall body that was just majorly stressed out, and it was reacting. So, and then heart disease on top of that with plugged arteries and standing up too fast and, almost pass out from seeing stars with my heart stopping and then 3 seconds later starting again and bam, this kind of stuff. It was, and then the liver.
I passed out before. I think I had some similar symptoms. I passed out once or twice when I was having my gut issues, and I think I just wasn't breathing very deeply back then. That probably factored in. But yeah, so how often did that? You said you passed out and you saw stars. How often did that happen?
Well, I didn't actually black out, but what would happen is I would get super dizzy and see stars like just pop, 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 pop. And that's where I found out that that's a major sign of plugged arteries. So like, what plugs arteries? Why am I getting plugged up? I know a bunch of reasons, bacterial infections, calcification, small size LDL getting into the wrong place, adhering against the wall of the arteries, all this stuff that happens that we just simply have to know. Then you go, oh, okay, so I got to get rid of the infections. How do I do that? Okay, that done. And I have to get the calcium back into my bones instead of my arteries. How do you do that? That's simple. So in the end, it became very, very simple and definitive. But if I wasn't given that information, I was out of here. That's how risky it is. Like normally, the first sign of heart disease is a funeral. Most of the time. People don't even know they have it coming. Boom, they're out of here. So fortunately, that didn't happen to me. I had these warning alarms starting to go off. And then my liver was off the charts with the numbers were so bad that the person who was running the equipment to measure it told me I had to go to the hospital immediately and admit myself in emergency and see a doctor immediately. That's how bad the numbers were. I'm like, man, this is actually after I was into the cleanup for almost 2 years. I was into like detox and eating clean and, getting hydrated, making sure I was getting proper sleep, starting to manage my stress. And that was still there, like that level. So I did take things very seriously, but I had to take responsibility myself. Instead of running to find a guru or a doctor or someone who would fix me, I realized that I had been sowing a lot of seeds in my life I didn't know were harming me. Planting for a harvest, right? And so when you start reaping an ugly harvest, you wonder, wow, what's up? Then you find out, I didn't know I was doing this and this and this and all these. So you have to stop continuing to plant the bad seeds because you're going to keep harvesting them. But you can't just get out of the harvest. You got to harvest everything.
Yeah.
And at the same time, you know what I'm talking about, right? You got to start planting seeds that are going to be really good, and they're not going to show up for 6 months to 5 years. But it all, if you can, as long as you can keep that equilibrium, and I hope that people never get in the shape I was, because that's so dangerous. Very, very small percentage of people will ever make it through to tell the story like I'm telling you right now. They just go. They're gone. The doctors get a hold of them. They do chemo, whatever it is. They're already compromised, and they just go down and they're gone. Nobody left to tell the story. So this story is wonderful because I ran into the right people early enough, and they couldn't be too advanced because I just couldn't take it mentally. So it was like this stair step of more information. And then, but I knew one thing, that when I met people who had something correct, I was all ears, willing to do whatever it takes. How much money is it going to cost? That's okay. How much time? That's fine. Am I going to suffer? Okay. Am I going to have fun? Oh, okay, let's do that too. So it was this whole spectrum of whatever it takes. And, when you get to the place where you say whatever it takes, you're going to get in for a pretty good ride at that point.
Yeah. I've definitely noticed that in my life. I kind of started this website without really knowing where it was going to lead. and it just took off way more than I expected. And it seemed like everything just came together very naturally, without me having to really, plan or strategize too much.
That's cool. That's when you know you're in the flow, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Mhm.
So when would you say after your original worst diagnosis, when were you able to get to the point where you felt like you were maybe like at least an 8 out of 10 on your overall health?
Well, I don't know if it would be an 8 out of 10, but what I ended up happening, so it took 5 years from the time of where the stuff started showing up until it was back in a safe medical range. So, you go in and get your blood test, you get your liver checked again, you get all that stuff back into a safe medical range. That took 5 years. So in '09, I would say that would be at best a 6 out of a 10. But what that did though, is it gave me some bandwidth. And by then I had learned enough about the most important nutrients, like micronutrients, nanonutrients, that I was now in the space of, in 2009, we were already 2 years into telling people about marine phytoplankton. And when I found out about marine phytoplankton in '07, right at the beginning of '07, I noticed that it was charging my battery. I couldn't explain it other than that. I didn't even know how it was doing that.
Yeah.
But it was doing this thing. And it was like a reserve. It wasn't like drinking a coffee at all. It was this deep charge that I could tap into. So when that happened, I started telling people in Canada, they didn't have any interest at that time for whatever reason. I don't know why. But they just turned their nose up at it as if it was something, oh, that's nothing. And then I went to California, showed some people at a health event there, and it just took off. They were like, what is this stuff? Wow, that really made me feel good. Because they'd all heard of spirulina and chlorella and that kind of stuff. But this was a marine phytoplankton microalgae that it turns out, and I didn't know it at the time, but it had every single nutritional molecule known to man in there, like all your amino acids, everything, all of them. And so when you take it, and it's all heirloom natural, your body intelligence knows when you're putting something in at that level, it's like, I've never seen that come in before. Okay, I know what to do with that. So the body automatically goes and starts doing wonderful things with it. And with all the response that came in California, they said, well, where do we get it? I said, well, I can get some. And I knew exactly how to do it. It just took some time. We had to fly in toast from Europe, had to get little bottles and labels and printers. And we set up a clean room in our basement of our house. And it ended up in the first 24 months, there was 2.8 million in retail sales in the first 24 months. We weren't even online. That's just people who
word
had
of mouth,
followers.
trade shows, stuff like that.
Nope, didn't even do that. Just people who had followers, like people who knew, hey, that person's got some interesting information. I'm listening to them. And then they would tell people, hey, look, I found this guy in Canada who we're getting this marine phytoplankton from. And this is a major upgrade for your whole body. And then that's how it went. We didn't do any marketing at all for the first 2 years. So
And this is through your company Activation?
No, Activation never started until 2014. So at that time, we didn't even have a company. I didn't even know how to set those things up. I just knew that we had to be really clean with everything, sterilized, making sure that and we never had a callback, never had a return throughout all that time, unless it was a broken bottle or something. But it was a phenomenal experience because people loved it more and more. And then we took it much more seriously. In 2009, we set up a small sole proprietorship in Canada, and that ran until 2014. By 2014, though, we had gotten to learn a little bit more about teaching people online about things. And we had started selling direct to consumer instead of through the people who were telling their people. And then that changed everything as well, because then there was a direct feedback loop. When people purchase something, we'd hear immediately about their experience. And then in 2014, we set up our company that moved into our manufacturing facility. And we always just reinvested the money back in. We didn't take the money that we made out of it, because I knew that we needed to continue to grow as far as being able to scale the amount of production for people who are going to need it and people who want it. And then we just sort of went through this maturing iteration of finding out what are your must-haves when it comes to high-level health and longevity. What are your like-to-haves, want-to-haves, because there's a lot of those kind of products. They're fun. And then you have luxurious products as well. So we have all three, but I knew that the most important would be must-have. And to define that, to filter out until you know what are the core foundations you're standing on to make sure your body can build this perfect health in every way, digestive, respiratory, endocrine system, everything you can think of in your human operating system. But like there's 12 of them working together to all work in symmetry. And that's where your foundation is needed. So I really focused on the functional foundational things. And then my body just rebuilt itself. And it was a phenomenal ride. And then it's a filtering out. You do less and less and less and get more and more and more out of it. So you spend less amount of time, energy, and money to get more return on that investment of those three things. And when I found out how to do that for myself, I knew that you would want the same thing. So if I want that for me, everyone wants that for them. They want to spend the least amount of time, energy, and money to get the best results in their health. And I'm coming from so far behind the eight ball. It was hilarious that I actually became super healthy in the end. And as far as I'm concerned, even right now, I'm still, just getting to that place where it's really dialing in. And after this is 15 years later. I know more than that, 17 years since the very beginning, but 15 years since we started really to learn. So here we are, 17 years, 2021 from 2004. With a lot of, and just a wealth of information came in. And, I could talk for hours and hours about all kinds of stuff, but I don't anymore because I know the most important things to hit. It's like filtering out. What are the top level things? There's good, great, greater, and the greatest. Once you tap into the greatest, you don't do these other things anymore, even though they're cool. You don't need them. And that's where everybody wants to accelerate to that level in every category of their life.
Yeah, it's definitely becoming more of a focus for people in today's day and age. It just seems like so many people are into optimizing their life and their health. I know for me, like I don't know if the supplement that I take contains marine phytoplankton. But it's got like different types of algae in it and things like that. And that's been one of the most life-changing things that I've taken. And I've recently kind of added that to my list of essential supplements.
Cool. Yeah. So and what's the name of that one?
I believe it is from E3 Live, Rejuvenate Me or something like that.
Right. Yeah, I know that company. Actually, interesting that you mentioned those guys because that's Vision Inc. up in Klamath Lake, Oregon. So I ran into them right out of the gate as well. They had this thing called Brain On, and they also had this frozen E3 Live stuff.
I like Brain On.
Yeah, and then all the extracts they get. But the E3 Live, that's where I got Oceans Alive because when I saw that one, I went, well, okay, they're from freshwater algae. This is marine algae. So marine algae has a totally different world that it lives in because it's the functional foundational food for the entire ocean. We have 8 times more life on the ocean than you do on Earth. And you remove from marine phytoplankton out, everything dies in the ocean. And then I found out the Europeans were cultivating and harvesting in a photobioreactor the exact strains that match the human nutritional profile. And that's where it became very defined. So and then the Ocean's 11 movie came out back in that year. It was like Oceans Alive, of course, Oceans E3 Live. Oh, Oceans Alive. And because it's a living phytoplankton that is fresh harvested and stabilized in concentrated sea mineral. So through an osmotic transfer of salinity, it immediately stabilizes it. And it's fresh today as it was the day it was harvested. It's just like eating a fresh salad from your garden every time. That's the stability that's in this thing. And so you're capturing the life energy of the nutrients, just like a fresh salad from your garden is so much nicer than when you bought at the store and kind of threw together, right? Because you're getting that freshly unplugged life out of your garden and consuming it within 15, 20 minutes. It's a whole different spectrum. So,
is that what you guys put in your formulas for Activation Company?
Yeah. Well, Activation so Oceans Alive was our primary product. That's still the most sold product in our company. That's what founded the whole thing. And so that's the marine phytoplankton. There's 2 different strains in there. It's a liquid. You just put it in a glass of water and drink it right away. And you can take it as many times during the day as you like. The minimum is 1 time a day because it's one of your must-haves. And then your body manufactures all the hormones and, vitamins and whatever you need from that when you take it. But it's a very small amount. It's not something you're going to go climb mountains with. That's a different type of fuel. This is a deep level cellular fuel that just goes in and sets the foundation. We have a transdermal product called EASE. That's a magnesium chloride hexahydrate. It's the highest grade one in the world. It's super pure USP grade pharmaceutical material that comes out of Europe. And then we have a special proprietary way to put it into solution. It takes 11 hours to make. But when you put it on your skin, it goes immediately in with the proper magnesium that is compatible to you. Because it comes from ocean water. It's an ocean water extract, but it's ultra pure. And that structure goes in and it begins to provide magnesium wherever you put it. And people are magnesium deficient.
Does that give you a similar feeling of well-being as to when you're swimming in the ocean or relaxing in the ocean?
It's similar. Like the ocean has your negative ions and the iodides and things that are, you can't get from just spraying the magnesium on. But the biggest thing that you notice a significant change in your mood where you're like chill, energized, and happy. Yeah. Because anxiety and concern is often related to a magnesium deficiency.
Yeah.
People get anxious, yeah.
I haven't really gotten too much into magnesium. I've pretty much only taken, I've sampled different things here and there. Omica Organics has a spray that I like. Mm-hmm. And then I take Natural Calm, which I know is kind of maybe not the top of the line magnesium. It's kind of just like for when you're in a pinch from what I know. But can you talk about like why you chose this form of magnesium and also how can that help? How does magnesium help somebody who might have IBS or anxiety or gut issues?
Mm-hmm. Well, so the reason we chose this form, first of all, to answer that question is your body is, all the fluid in your body is electrolytic fluid. They say you're 70% water. No, there's no water in your body. There's electrolytic fluid. And if you cry a tear, it tastes like 1/3 strength ocean water. It's pretty salty. And that's because we do have like an ocean inside. They even transfused ocean water for blood plasma in wars where they couldn't get access to blood and had success. There's Rene Quintone figured that out back in the early 1900s by pulling ocean water out from the marine phytoplankton bloom, super cold filtering it and then injecting it in the body. So I knew that the magnesium we had to be compatible with that structure that your body is looking for. Plus, in order to get through the skin, you have to have it in a very special, basically it's imploded. And it sounds like a bit woo-woo, but it's not. It's extremely scientific. So it has to go through what they would make a jet engine energy from.
You said imploded?
Yes. Yeah,
so like the magnesium molecule has to kind of implode to get into the cells or the skin, or
well, it has to get into the solution. So a lot of people just take magnesium chloride and melt it in water and spray it in their skin, and it does almost nothing. They'd be very uncomfortable. So when you go through this high level extract and then you add that through an implosion technology into the solution, it immediately releases, and then it's structured to hold. Because you could have a magnesium sulfate bath and you'll feel relaxed from that. But because there's no structure to it, it just washes through your system. Because you want to build up a small amount of reserves all the time of magnesium that you get to tap into. So every time you use your brain, you're burning magnesium. And there's a scientific study that showed over 330 biochemical reactions that rely on enough magnesium to function properly. So your whole body system, that's why people get anxious. And you mentioned digestion. Digestion relies on magnesium as a core element. If you have too much going in digestively, it'll give you peristalsis and you get the runs, the last thing you want. And plus that'll dump other important minerals. So getting it in through the skin does not tax the kidneys. It doesn't go through your digestive tract. It goes into your microcirculation and lymphatic. And then your body just uses it where it wants. And you can feel it generally within 90 seconds. Like if you have say a sore elbow or a joint that's bothering you or a stiff neck, you can put it on there 90 seconds. You don't rub it in either. You just spray it on and just wipe it around. There's no there's no perfumes or anything like that in it. It won't stain your clothing. Even during the day, people will just give it a few shots right in the front here, just go like that. And that lowers their anxiety back down to feeling normal again. Because again, you're using a lot of energy. You're burning a lot of magnesium. And magnesium is one of the macro fuels that you have to add to your system. You know, if you're getting enough in your food, which you're not anymore, because the foods are depleted from a lot of elements, even organic stuff is depleted. because it's not in the soil anymore. So magnesium supplementation is essential. I know several very high-end consumables which people can use for their brain or for their muscles, but putting it in geographically is by far the best. So the best thing is like 30 sprays in the morning when you wake up after you have a shower, and then before you go to bed. So you have deeper, more restful sleep. You'll have more calm energy throughout the day, and your thinking gets clear. To really see that level, you're talking a couple of months, where it's really noticing a big shift. And I've seen examples where young women in their 20s who have struggled with menstrual cycle and cramps, and they can't work for 3 or 4 days a month. One woman was just doing it for her shoulder that she had injured in high school, and after 2 months, her whole cycle smoothed right out. She got a hold of me. I go, exactly. It helped her shoulder, but your magnesium deficiency that was causing all the cramping, because the muscles contract with calcium and relax with magnesium. So you've got to have both. They work together. They're hand in hand. And people get overcalcified. They get stiff joints. They get stiff muscles. That's even in your heart. So magnesium is a great thing that adds into that, and as other things we could talk about. But yeah, it helps with all those things.
And so about 45 million people have some sort of gastrointestinal disorder, and 2 in 3 are female. IBS, that's irritable bowel syndrome sufferers are female. According to the research that you shared, it takes over 6 years for people to get the diagnosis after they have symptoms. And most people don't seek medical care. So what do you think are the big causes of this, and where do you think that our medical system is missing the boat on these disorders?
Yeah, so, well, let's take a look at the stages of problems with gut health, for example. So you go stage 0, you have perfect gut health. Perfect. Stage 1, you've got some stuff going on, but you're not sensing anything yet. You don't even notice it. Stage 2, you don't notice that either. When you start to get into stage 3 issues with your gut health, that's where symptoms show up. And you, like you mentioned, they kind of broad stroke it and they call it irritable bowel syndrome. Well, that could mean a whole bunch of stuff. And then it would go from there to diverticulitis or Crohn's, which is just hell on earth for people. And they end up having operations and getting parts of their digestive system cut out. And that's the super advanced side. And then, of course, ultimately colon cancer. So, or some kind of gut cancer. The problem is really simple. People have just got to wake up and realize that everyone has gut issues. Just because you have no symptoms, you're a stage 1 or 2. And why are people having gut issues? Number 1, they're stressed. Number 2, glyphosates. How much restaurant food do we eat? There's glyphosates in the food. Even if you're eating organic, most of the time you go to a restaurant, you don't know. The traceability of what you're eating is very important. Then you've got yeast overgrowth, fungal infections, bacterial infections, too many unfriendlies. All of those things start adding up. Add in heavy metals. Heavy metals distract the immune system from dealing with those infections. And when I was, getting this cancer diagnosis idea, that turned out to just be a fungal infection with heavy metals and chemicals and bacteria. And it was a growth, and it's growing. And that thing that I didn't get cut out turned into a big tumor.
So that was basically an amalgamation of all that junk, like turned into the cyst or the cancer cells potentially.
Right. Turned into a big tumor that grew a third, like 3 prongs coming out. Well, not 3, but the main one in the middle with 2 coming out. So 3 major areas of the tumor. The one and then they shrunk, and that's where they got very painful. That's where it gets really dangerous when something shrinks down a little bit. It didn't shrink much, but I had like a third thing where I only needed 2, and then a blockage in the rectum. So all of those things just morphed out, and plus it was attached to my large intestine. So you can't just go in and start cutting those things out. You've got a breach. You have a very compromised immune system. You're fighting a battle. The last thing you want to do is open up your body. And should they be corrected with cancer? Why does cancer metastasize? because it's mold. Fungus is mold. And if you cut it, it feels like it's getting attacked and it just sends out satellites, like run and hide. That's why all of a sudden they go from colon cancer to liver cancer to, kidney cancer to brain cancer, lung cancer. It just metastasizes. And if it gets into your lymph, you're even in more trouble. So that's the things that it's infection. And add in estrogens, plastics, add in all that other stuff, so your body can only take so much at a time. And then it gets overwhelmed. My body was super overwhelmed. So I had to support it. I had to come to its rescue. I had to learn, wow, what do I got to do? How do I help my body get back? What am I doing? I found out that it was everything I was doing. And then stress levels on top. If you got high stress, your cortisol levels go way up. You gain weight. You're acidizing yourself. Your acid goes, people get all acidic. And then that's eating up their bones and leaching calcium out and putting it in the arteries and on it goes. So it's just a matter of dialing it back, learn where's the functional foundational place you got to be, what is the root cause of things, and then work your way at it. And it's never fast, but it's certainly, it can be speedy. I mean, I sped healed a lot of things once I learned what it was, but it was no speed healing at the start.
And if you had to name maybe like three things, like your three foundational things that people with these digestive issues should start with, what would you recommend? Like, is it mostly lifestyle to start, or is it mostly nutrition for most people? But yeah, three things.
Well, lifestyle and nutrition are kind of secondary when you have a blowout. Once you're blowing out, you haven't got your right villi, all the mucosal layer is messed up. You've got inability to absorb nutrients, so you're starving. Then your body's like getting really in trouble because it can't get the nutrients it really needs to fight off. So you really have to go in and get the system cleaned up. We have three different things that work exceptionally quickly in the gut health area. Number one is coriander oil. So coriander oil is just known for helping to balance candida, for example. So if a person has an overgrowth of candida, it's got to be brought into check because you need candida, which is a real small amount. And then you've got to do black cumin seed oil. So the black cumin seed oil is one of those broad spectrum tonics. You take a teaspoon because your digestive tract starts in your fingers. When people used to eat with their food with their hands, right? Then the next place is in your mouth. So your mouth is the scanner because you're chewing the food and it's reading everything and it's going, okay, that's coming in. Okay, then you swallow. You're mixing saliva with the food. Well, with the black cumin oil, what you do after you have breakfast in the morning is I just take a teaspoon, put it in my mouth, and chew it. 1 minute. That's all. And everyone knows about oil pulling for the most part. So this is a type of oil pulling. Only this stuff is so powerful oil. It goes after all the microbes, any bacteria that's building plaque in your teeth. The bacteria in the shag rug of your tongue, it ain't going to make it past this one. And you just chew it for 1 minute. Then you swallow it. When you swallow it, have a warm glass of water with some medicinal honey in it, some manuka, or one of the ones we bring in from Greece. And I can talk about the one from Greece, but we only have limited supply of that. So we bring it in batches and it sells it right away. But if a person can keep a jar of that for the year and just use a little bit in the water, get warm water, melt it into the water, not hot, melt it in. And then once you're done chewing for 1 minute, you drink. That goes into your gut with this medicinal honey, and it reacts with the hydrochloric acid in your stomach, which then builds antibodies like crazy. So you're all of a sudden your immune system's like, yeah, build antibodies. And then the rest of the black seed oil is actually black cumin, cumin seed oil is the real name for it, but mostly known by black seed oil. Then it goes through the rest of your body to deal with all kinds of other stuff like fungal things and heavy metals. And it's a cleansing, nourishing thing. So that's why these oils are such a big deal, because they're delivering the nutrients, but they're cleansing the way on the way through. So for people to have wonderful dental health and not have to go to the hygienist and get your teeth scraped, you should never have to get your teeth scraped once you know how to maintain your dental. So that's your primary defense. Once you clean this up, then when you're eating food, chew your food better. It's very important to not drink fluids with your meal. If you love soup, well, you love soup, so you're going to have fluids with your meal. If you love wine, you're going to have fluids with your meal. But the optimal is not to have, because when you're chewing here, your food, you want to chew it enough that it's really well chewed. You're putting saliva into it, which is the first level of digestion. But more importantly, your brain is signaling your tummy there's incoming food because you're chewing. It's all connected. So then your stomach produces the hydrochloric acid, the digestive acids, right? You don't want to dilute that. When you drink fluids with it, you're diluting it down. So when the food hits the stomach, it doesn't open up the molecules enough to really absorb properly. And then the body thinks it's starving. And then you have chunks, and it's not like the super fine nutritional material going through. And I've done this for like 6 months at a time, where I wouldn't drink any fluids for 30 minutes before the meal and for 2 hours after the meal. And then in between meals, drink lots of fluids, but don't snack, because as soon as you snack, you're messing your system up. And I lost 55 pounds in about 49 days, which was so fast it scared my friends. But I was like, I don't know. I was eating lots of food. I was just chewing it really good. And I was full within 15 minutes, and I wouldn't get hungry. And that brought my metabolism up. And I only did that for 6 months. I didn't need to keep going for 6 months, but I did, because it made me feel so good. And I was getting all this energy from my food, and it was costing a lot less to eat. But what happened is I just sort of stopped. Holidays came, and I started eating regular again. And I never started again. I did not gain any weight for 5 years. That's how much my metabolism went up from that event, of my body believing that it's not starving anymore and super happy. But that takes some discipline. It's easy to say to do that, but we're social people, and we are around other people, and often we talk when we're eating, and we forget to drink fluids between our meals, so we're thirsty, and then we drink fluids. So it's a habit. It's a lifestyle habit. But I'm putting a product out called The Art of Eating. It's just an information product, and it's about the deep levels of how to heal your gut basically for free, and how to get your body just dialed back in again, and getting your absorption levels up, and making sure you're not having fluids with your meals. That's a big kicker, fluids with the meals. So then the third thing, so we talked about the coriander oil, the black cumin seed oil, and both of those are pressed in a really high technology machine that doesn't damage the oil. And it's the only kind of technology in the world that works at this level. And the third thing is we have a product called Perfect Iodine. So this is the first time in history that you can get a USP grade pharmaceutical I2 crystal molecule converted into a gas, infused into distilled water, and that's all that is in the product. Distilled water and Dalton molecules of iodine, which are gas size. So they're so tiny they just go everywhere. You drink it in water. Like if a person has a really serious gut issue, they're going to dose this stuff. They're going to dose it for like at least 14 days. At the same time, they're going to be taking probiotics, because they're going to keep building the friendly bacteria. But it goes in and it deletes the fungal infections that are causing Crohn's and IBS and diverticulitis and all that stuff. It is so fast acting, just for your gut health alone, let alone the rest of your body. You can take the same Perfect Iodine and nebulize it. It goes after all the microbes in your sinus. If you breathe it up to your nose, goes into your lungs. It's just the most incredible discovery. That's only been out for a very short time. We haven't even launched it yet officially, but that's a major gut health upgrade. So Nick, I got to get a package to you. This is kind of a short notice interview, so we didn't get a chance. But when you get this stuff, you'll see what I'm talking about. It is just upgrade after upgrade after upgrade with a minimal effort, and it's so much fun.
Yeah, I never really realized the iodine gut health connection quite that to that degree. Mm-hmm. There's so many people talking about like this type of iodine, that type of iodine, and it seems like nobody really knows the truth about what the best iodine is. From my experience, it's like the default is like the Lugol's iodine. A lot of people talk about that, but then I wasn't very satisfied with that product at all.
No, it's literally dangerous, because you can overdose so easily on it. Same with Magnesium, same with the Atomidine or detoxified iodine. It's all super high intensity. I've seen people get alopecia from it. So we remove the risk factor completely. We don't have any chemical reactions. There's no solvents involved. there's only the purest USP grade crystal iodine molecule. So you could drink the whole bottle and not harm yourself. And you don't need to drink the whole bottle. You just take the amount that's recommended. And if you're dosing for a gut health thing, you're going to take more for a little while. But it just makes you, brain power, hang on for that. Because when you get the iodine going in your system and it's reacting with all these unfriendlies, it turns into iodide. Iodide then goes through your bloodstream, goes to your thyroid. Your thyroid then produces T3, T4 iodine hormones, which assists men and women, specifically women, to help balance their own hormones with a well-balanced thyroid. If they're hypo or hyper, they still use it because it goes in to bring the balance. The reason it's either or is because it's insufficient. And so people, oh, I can't have any iodine. This is different. This is a whole different world. You know, if somebody's had their thyroid nuked already and they're on Synthroid, there's nothing you can do. It's just not going to do anything other than you got to take Synthroid, which is too bad. But that's a very small percentage of the population at that level. And then we have a thing called perfect iodide. If you just want iodide, you spray it in your mouth, it goes right in and straight to your thyroid without having to go through the whole system. But the iodine is the best of all worlds because it's dealing with all the infections that are in the body at the same time as delivering you iodide. And iodide is equated to brain power because the thyroid producing the T3, T4 goes in, builds your metabolism, helps with your entire endocrine system, but it boosts brain power. And the scientific studies, which have been done more on iodine than anything else I've ever seen, showed IQ iodine. And they saw a big jump back in the late 1800s in Europe and the early 1900s in North America of all these mental issues that just disappeared with people in mental institutions as soon as they got the iodide thing sorted out. So that's what's super exciting. Anyway, when you get this stuff, I'm really interested in your feedback.
Sounds good, Ian. And so we only have probably about 3 or 4 minutes left here. Can you just tell people a little bit about your company, and also, I was going to say like how different you felt since you healed your gut issues, but we might have to save that for next time. Can you just tell people about your company and where they can find the products? I'll place a link in the comments section if anybody would like to see. But
yeah, cool. So Activation Products is a primary manufacturer. So we go from raw material all the way through to finished value add. So we trace everything from A to Z. So we are the manufacturer. We don't just buy from somebody and resell it or what's trending. We're located in Canada. We're CGMP certified. We're certified health, USDA organic. We're in about a 70,000 square foot building. We've got all of the highest tech equipment and clean rooms all set up. We do our own fulfillment as well. So we're directly connected to our customers. They can get a hold of us anytime through customer service. We have direct feedback loops through social media. We're very interested in seeing people achieve the maximum health at the least amount of investment possible and have the most fun. So that's what motivated this thing, whole thing to start with. I never dreamed I'd have a company like this, but it by default, that happened. Just like what happened with you. By default, you ended up helping a lot of people, which is we're on mission. So our mission is to improve the quality of life at the same time as having extended longevity for people. Because the longer you're alive, what we've learned is the smarter you get, the more knowledge you have, the better you can become, the stronger, not the other way around in society where people get old and fall apart. And that last little piece you talked about gut health, the biggest thing I noticed when my gut got healed is my intuition, my gut feel, because there's so much brain power in the gut. So you're calculating up here. In your heart is where you make your deep decisions, but in your gut, you're just feeling everything around you. So bringing intuition up is so important right now. So you are not taking wrong decisions, especially with the way the world is today. You got to be making good, clear decisions and taking responsibility for yourself at the highest levels.
Well, thanks so much, Ian. I feel like this could have been like a 3 or maybe even like a 4-hour interview, but I really appreciate you chatting with me today, and best of luck, and thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Nick. I really enjoyed our conversation. Look forward to more in the future.
Sounds good.
Okay, cool. So are you, is this like a podcast style?